This conference will now be recorded.
Hey team, is it recording? Can you please confirm once?
Yes, sir, it is recording.
No, it is stating that start your recording once you hover the mouse onto that. Recording is off.
It is already recording.
Just cross check once. Again, it will create a problem.
Okay.
Just
This
give me a
conference
second.
will now be recorded.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Is it audible to all? Prem, Mike, Pranay, Ashwini, Kishore?
Yes,
Sujit. Yes.
What we discussed in our last session? Where we stopped exactly? Yes, please.
we done one use case and error handling,
Okay.
and we saw one response.
I didn't discuss about a propagate and continue. I just deployed this application, and what is the request I have given? 80 81 dash error, and I'm giving I mean, do I have any given any product name or else any alternate I have given? I think I have given alternate name, right?
Alternate, yeah.
Which is not existing. So where I got an exception? I got an exception at a is true validator level. So meanwhile, it is getting deployed. Right? Meanwhile, can you please tell once I get an exception at a is true validator level, how it works? Pranay, Prem, Mike, Ashwini, you need to respond.
It stops the remaining consecutive processes first.
Okay. Okay.
And it look for the any local error handler is there in that particular. If it's not, then it has to go to the default error handler and logs the error info into the console.
Okay.
And then it read to the next level where it is here is the main flow.
Okay.
And the remaining consecutive process is going to stop, and it checks the local error. Otherwise, it goes to the next level, means it's the listener.
Yes, exactly. So again, it will check in a local error handler. If there is no error handling, Mule default error handler will come. That's it, right? That's you understood, right? Let me send a request. What is the response I will get here on the client level? Yeah, what is the response will be displayed to the client?
The message which we returned in the is error, and the message which in the responses.
Yeah, totally depends on the response in the listener. What is there? What I have written in the listener?
Payload.
No, that is a payload for error responses and an error type, right?
Okay.
So what is the error type? Yesterday we have seen this hierarchy, right? Every error will follow some hierarchy. What is that hierarchy?
It's a namespace and identifier.
That is the error type. What falls under errors are classified into two. One is
Description and error type.
no. Those are the properties of error object. I'm talking about errors are
Critical
classified
and
into two.
any and critical.
Any and critical.
Critical,
Now,
yeah.
what I got here is it part of? It is a part
Any.
of any type,
Any.
right? So I think till yesterday, till here, I concluded. Correct.
Yeah.
Now, I want to handle the exception now. Basically, I want to catch the exception which is occurred at a is true validator level. So, what types of handlers? How many handlers I have? Yesterday we discussed. Yeah, types of handlers: propagate, on error, continue, on error, propagate, and error handler.
Yeah.
Right. Let me catch the exception which is occurred at a is true validator by using this handler. I'm just drag and dropping that at a error handling block. Right now, just for understanding purpose, I'm writing a logger. Carefully listen. In this logger, I'm writing some text. I'm writing to identify which logger is executed. I'm in which flow? Just writing the flow name in validate and transform flow equal to which scope. Right now, I'm in a propagate scope. Correct. Propagate scope. I will be writing in the display name also. Okay. Now, if I deploy this application, once I get an exception at a is true validator level, yeah, what happens?
First, the consecutive process will stop. Flow.
Okay.
The flow will stop.
Okay.
And they check in the local error propagate local error handler.
Yeah. Here, one step you need to remember. First, it will check in a local error handler. Is there any handler which is catching the exception? Okay. Okay. I have some exception here. That means I have a handler here. Okay. First, the logic present in that handler will execute it. Whatever the logic present in that, it's like a flow only. Again, one more flow, subflow, right? Whatever the logic present in that, the scope, we'll call that scope. We'll scope that in that scope will get executed, right? Next, it will check what type of scope it is. Is it a propagate scope or a continue scope? If it is a propagate, whatever the error occurred, that error event will be rethrown to the caller flow. That means main flow. Same process now. Again, it will check in a local error handler, right? Then, who will come into the picture? Default error handler. That remaining story, you know what happens. Let's see. How many loggers should get execute right now? Yeah, how many logs?
Only
Only one, right? Only this log present in that. Why this logger will execute? No, right? Only the logger present in the validate and transform will execute. You can see in the end, invalidate and transform equal to propagate, right? Let me configure one more scope. See carefully here, listen here. I'm just drag and dropping this continue in the error handling block again. So it is throwing some exception, that means error. If I hover the mouse onto that error, you can observe something. What is that? Can you please read this?
handler must specify only linear type attribute.
What do you understood from that error? Every handler except the last one with an error handler must specify when or type attribute. That means, in other words, bring background noise. So, in other words, just we need to tell that if you have more than one error handler in a single error handling block, we need to specify that error handling block should handle when. Okay, remember this point. I will show you practically. Okay, now let me configure Okay, I'm just saving this. I'm redeploying this application. Can you please tell me now how it works? I'm going to get an exception at a is true validator level because I'm not giving a request. Next. Others, you need to respond. Not only Kishore in this session, everyone are there. Please respond. Kishore will give a chance to some other this time. Sorry.
Suggest, can you show me again how you set the VAT equals continue?
It's a logger. It's a logger. Just I've written some text.
Oh, okay.
Yes, guys. Please go ahead.
It checks for the local error handler in which we have written.
No. First step is missing.
Oh, it stops the.
Yes.
Then it
Yeah,
checks
please go
for the
ahead.
local error handler, and you can see the. Oh, it is on error continue, so it will continue to transfer message, I guess.
No. Okay, forget about the continue. Tell me for a propagate scope.
I forgot.
Propagate means you will go to the main flow.
What will be thrown to the main flow?
Exception.
Exception
will throw into the main flow, and the message will pass to the main flow too.
Okay. Any other answers? Steps are very important. Sequence is very, very important here. Can anyone else? Sure, you can also.
Which propagator?
Yeah, propagate. Just go with the propagate. Just tell the steps. Listen, guys. Please carefully listen. These are very important. Yeah. Go ahead, Kishore. Sorry.
Yeah. It stops the consecutive processes, and then it takes the local error propagate.
No. I'm getting an exception at a is true validator level, correct?
Yeah.
The consecutive process will not execute, right? Once the error occurs, then that error event will check in a local error handler. Is there any handler is available or not? It could be a propagate or it could be a continue. If any handler is available, first the logic present in that will execute it. Okay. Then it will check whether it is a continue or a propagate. If it is a propagate, error event will be thrown to the main flows, the caller flow. If it is a continue, it will suppress the error and it will give a success event to the main flow. Right? Success event. My flow reference is receiving a success event. If it is receiving a success event, the logger present in the main flow, the consecutive process after the flow reference will execute or not?
Yes, execute.
Right? Continue is not responsible for the current flow. It is responsible, or that value coming from the continue is valid for a next level. Continue, that means the caller flow level, not for the current flow. Got it? Understood, everyone? If it is a propagate, error event, continue, success event. Let me clear all these drawings. Now, will it check in a local error handler if it is a continuous scope from the child flow?
No.
No, right? Because main flow is receiving a success. So, what is the end payload we are going to get? What is the payload I got? Empty. And what is the status code I got?
200 success.
200 success code. So why empty? Because I didn't set any payload here. I just created a logger. Now you can see the logs. How many logs we'll get? One is from validate and transform, and one more is from the logger present in the main flow. What is that logger? in main flow after getting all the products. The same log I got here. Yeah. Understood the difference between a propagate and continue here? Everyone clearly?
Yes, teacher.
Yeah. Okay. Let me open that PPT. Yes. So I think I stopped in the last session here. Hierarchy. Next, I discussed about this one as well. Next, on error propagate. Can anyone read this on error propagate? We'll go with the Prem. Yeah, Prem, please go ahead.
Yeah. All processes in the error handling scope are executed. At
What
the
do you
end
mean
of
by
this,
that? Yeah, what is the meaning of that line? All processes in the error handling scope are executed. That's what we discussed.
Yeah.
Whatever the logic present in that scope will execute it. Next.
at the end of the scope, the rest of the flow that through the error is not executed.
Obviously, once you get an exception, remaining process will not execute. Next.
The error is rethrown up to the next level and handled there.
Yeah, when if it is a propagate scope, correct? Next.
And an HTTP listener returns an error response.
You know already, right? Next, if it is a continue,
On error continue, all processes in the error handling scope are executed.
same.
At the end of the scope, the rest of the flow that through the error is not executed.
Yeah, is
The
there any
event,
difference between the first point and second point here? Whether it is a propagate or a continue?
no, it's the same.
No, right? That means what? Irrespective of the continue or a propagate scope, whatever the logic present in that will execute. That is the first point. Once I get an exception, automatically it will stop the remaining processors. Now, the difference between the propagate and continue is here.
The
What is
event
it?
is passed to the next level as if the flow execution had
Has
completed
completed
successfully.
successfully. That means it will suppress the error and create a success event that will be given back to the next level. So HTTP returns which response?
Successful response.
Yeah, I have a give you use cases here for that scenario. Can you please go through that case quickly? I'll just give you 2 minutes for a slide. Please understand that this is the one flow. On the right side, you can see bottom to top approach. Please analyze that. Every slide I will give 2 minutes. Once you're done, please let me know. I will move on to the next slide. Any doubts, ask me.
So this is a propagate.
No error handler. It is written over there. No error handler is configured.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it?
Yeah.
Others. Or else, why can't we gave a chance to some other to explain about that? Who will go with this? It's very simple.
Yeah, if no error handler, you will try to find the default handler,
Mm-hmm.
and then default handler will execute, and then yeah, slowly error. Oh, I mean send an error response back to the client.
Okay. Moving on to the next slide. Yeah, who can explain this slide?
So error get strong, and if it's propagate, then error will restore. Usually will go to the main flow. So in the main flow, then
I have only one flow.
Only one flow. So propagate means the error won't be suppressed. It will still be strong, and then error response will return to the client.
So anyone can give that? I mean, one more answer for this. Can anyone explain this?
Sorry.
Steps, sequence missing, Mike. Steps are very important in a sequence. Why I'm telling that, you'll understand. Yeah, please go ahead, guys.
Yeah, the error is thrown, and all the subsequent processes are not executed. So it
Okay.
was stops, and then on error propagate scope is executed. So whatever logic is written inside that will be executed, and then the error would be returned as a response to the listener, and the listener throws that to the client.
No, will you check for a scope, propagate scope or a continuous scope or not?
Oh, yeah, yeah, it would, but okay, I assumed it's in propagate, so I just said for propagate the error will be returned.
Yeah. Okay, got it. Okay, first tell me, is there any wrong in this slide?
Sujit,
Yeah.
P has to be the processor P has to be execute, right? Because it's
I will try to confuse you more. Please be confident enough.
Let's throw
Is there anything wrong in this slide? What about others? Rajesh, Sahitya, Pranay, Ashwini not responding.
I don't think so. No error, I guess.
No error. Subsequent process will not execute.
Because success message, right? This is error handler.
The success message.
So will execute or not?
It will execute.
It executes. The payload goes to the
I said that I will try to confuse you more. Why it will execute?
because scope error occurs.
Scope is a continue. What is the next level here? I said the point here, not required to check. I mean, that is not responsible for the current flow. That is responsible for the next level. I made a point. That is the reason I'm asking you in a sequence. Okay.
So next level.
Pardon? Understood, guys? Understood or not?
Yeah, got it. Yeah.
Got it, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Done? Yeah, Pranay or Rajesh, can you please explain this one? Yes, Pranay or Rajesh. If you are okay, you can go ahead and explain this. This is the main flow. Second one is the child flow. Okay, or anyone can go ahead, please, quickly.
In the main flow, calling flow, the flow reference component has error and their error, and next first immediately the processor P is not being executed. then it's a local error handler, error propagate scope there, and the logic will be seen there, and the logic implements. Then the error propagate means it's going to the
Call the flow.
Call the flow, and there also check the error propagates logic and error propagate scope.
Subsequent process in that flow also will not execute.
Not execute, and error propagate logic will be execute and go to the next level, means go to the listener.
Listener will return error response. Okay.
Error return.
Again, do you find any wrong in this slide? Think and tell me.
Or error continuous scope has something wrong.
You need to tell me the answer. What you felt?
No.
The subsequent processes should be executed in error continuous scope.
Can anyone give answer for this? Is it correct?
No.
No.
So please go ahead and explain. Yeah, please explain, guys. Anyone?
So the processes should execute it on error continuous scope.
That's what I'm telling. This continue is responsible for the current flow or next flow?
It's for the next flow. Yeah.
Where is the next flow for this continue?
There is no next flow, so it'll return the error to the listener.
Is error? Is it an error?
Or no, it is a success.
Success event will be given to the listener. Okay, let me explain. Again, okay, just to see the drawing here. Where I'm getting an exception, the HTTP listener will listen for the request, convert it to event. Event will be processed by the processor. Then the event is referencing to the child flow. Execution will start from the processor in the child flow. At the first processor level, I am getting an exception, right? Then subsequent process will not execute. It will check in a local error handler. The logic present in that will execute. Then it will check whether it's a propagate or a continue. If it is a propagate, yes, error event will be thrown back to the caller flow. Since I get an error at a flow reference level, subsequent process will execute? No. Right? And it will check in a local error handler. All the logic present in that continue scope will execute. Then it will check whether it is a propagate or a continue. If it is a continue, that error event will be suppressed and success event will be given to the next level. Who is the next level here? Listener. That is the reason listener is returning what? Success response. Got it?
Yeah.
Understood, everyone?
Got it.
Next slide. Last slide. Now you can see the difference.
Yeah.
Is it clear, guys? Is it clear?
Yeah.
Okay, let me go back. So till now, where I catch the exception at a is true validator level, right? Let me delete this. Now I will make this statement as a HP. So which my is true validator is no more giving any exception because I'm giving a HP as a request. Then it will go to the transformer. What is the transformer? What I have written in the transformer? It's an XML body and the name attribute I'm getting from the query parameters. Whatever the value I passed through query parameters client, that will be passed as a name attribute in XML format. It will become a body in the event. That event is processed by the next processor. What is the next processor? Flow reference, which is referencing to get product by name. So that event is processed by the consume connector in the get product by name. This consume connector is pointing to get product by name request. That means, is it expecting some name input, name attribute as an input? Yes, right? So in which format? It requires input in a XML format. On that I told two ways. One is by using creating a template, and parse template is the one. And other way is by using a transformer also we can create a XML format, right? Okay. Now assume that this consume character is pointing to some third-party server, and it is deployed, and we are getting some response. If it is success, then the logger will execute. At the end, my transformer is converting into JSON format, whatever the output is, right? So now I deployed this application. Okay, once I give a request, where I'm going to get an exception? Yeah, where I will get an exception here?
In the consume connector, right?
Exactly. Why? Because did I started any third-party server here? This is pointing to my server. That means product service SOAP application. Did I started a server? No, right? So at consume connector level, once the consume connector send a request, it is getting some response back, error response. What is that error response?
It's a namespace and is identifier. WSC is.
So how now from your application, how can you identify what type of error, what is wrong with the third-party server? How can you identify that? By seeing this error type. So what do you mean by this cannot dispatch?
It's the identifier, so there's no server.
The third-party server is not started, is not up and running. So at which connector level I got an exception? Web service consumer. And this consumer level, I may get different type of exceptions, right? To identify specific error, that could be identified by identifier in the error. Got it? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, now I want to catch the exception by using a propagate scope, for example. I'm in which flow? Let me write a logger inside this. I'm in, what is the flow name?
Get
Product by name equal to propagate scope. Okay, now when this exception will be cached, when the logic will be executed, wherever the exception occur at a flow level, this logic will execute, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Assume I have one more consume connector in this flow. Two consume connectors are pointing to two different web servers. So basically SOAP servers. Assume that two SOAP servers are down. Once you deploy this application, you are getting a response as cannot dispatch. Okay. My requirement is whenever you are getting an exception from the first consume connector as a cannot dispatch, then only I want to execute this logic. So how you can identify whether the error is coming from first connector or a second consume connector? Yes. How?
Is there a connector name which is unique, which should be unique?
Connector name is consume only, right?
Is there ID associated with it? I don't remember seeing it.
No ID.
Yeah.
You are almost correct. but small.
Can you just go to configuration XML, Sujit?
Nothing in the configuration XML. I'm just giving a hint.
Right.
You should have asked me to go with the consume connector. Just click on a consume connector. You can identify here.
Is it the display name?
No.
No.
Answer is on the screen.
Two names.
Keep guessing. Keep guessing.
What do you mean the operation?
Huh? Pardon?
The operation?
Error mapping.
Okay.
Error mapping. So I know if the third party server is down, what type of error we are going to get? These are all the probabilities. If the third party server is down, what is the error type I'm getting? Cannot dispatch. I'm purposefully mapping that cannot dispatch to my own identifier, my own error type. So cannot dispatch at this connector level is mapped to app::Sujit, right? From the second consume connector, if I get any, if the third party server is down, what type of error we are going to get? Yes.
Cannot dispatch.
Cannot dispatch. From the first consume connector, app::Sujit. Internally, it will map it to app::Sujit, right? Now, what is my requirement? This on error propagate scope, the logic present in that, I want to execute this logic only if the error is coming from the first consume connector. So how can I define that? Just click on this on error propagate. There is a type. Click on the icon or start typing it. You can type it or just click on the browser. So now you can see app::Sujit is also part of that. Just select that. So when this will get executed? When I'm getting an exception from the consume connector as app::Sujit, then only it will execute. If I'm getting an exception from the second consume connector, will it execute? Is that condition is satisfied?
No.
No, right? Okay. In that case, who will catch that exception? Which is coming from the second consume connector.
The default error handler.
Exactly. So let me delete that consume connector and let me deploy this application. Then see how the error is mapped to app::Sujit internally, and finally it is throwing as what? This is the concept called error mapping concept. Okay, just see here. Actual error I'm getting is cannot dispatch. The type is mapped to app::Sujit. So finally the error type is what? App::Sujit. Got it? Now, let me configure a continue. So previously when I configured the two configurations, two error handlers in a handling block, I got an error. Remember?
Yeah.
Now, am I getting the error? No, before, because what it was said is said that if you are having more than one error handler, except the last one, for remaining all error handlers, you need to specify the type attribute. That is the reason. Sorry, what I'm doing. Okay, now I will select this on error continue type. See, if I'm not specifying any here, I mean any type of attribute, how previously, how all the configuration, I mean whatever the error occurred, how that particular scope is getting executed if I'm not mapping that. Last 10 minutes before only I started this mapping. Before that, whatever the propagate scope or a continuous scope I have given in the validate and transform, those got executed, right? Without mapping any type. How? By default, if you not specify any type of error, by default it's an any type. If you explicitly use that or not using that, by default it's a type is what? Any type, right? Let me change the propagate type to bad request. So can you please tell me which scope will execute now? If I'm getting an exception at a consume connector level, which scope will execute now? Which is matching? Which error type is matching with the incoming error?
Continue.
Continue.
Continuous scope error, because it's an any. Any means what? Any type of error, right? So okay, let me change here the propagate to any, continue to app colon Sujit. Now can you please tell me?
It done both app, right, Sujit?
Yeah, both is pointing to apps.
Sorry.
First one should be any. Yeah.
Yeah, in that case, tell me.
It go to error propagate.
Only propagate continues accurately matching with that. Yeah, what you said is correct. Always, any means what? App colon Sujit also part of any only, right? Always it will check in a top to bottom hierarchy. Normally in Java, it will throw as an exception, it will not allow. But here it is allowing, but actually it is not correct, right? Any means anytime it will go to the continuous scope. Whatever the error occurs in a flow, no, right? Always this error, this propagate only will be handled. Got it?
Yeah.
Hope you understood.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Next, the last topic. Error handler. I'm just drag and dropping this propagate and continue to the error handler scope. Right. Now I'm treating this flow as a global error handler or an application level error handler. If I treat, that means we need to tell to the runtime that we are configuring this as a global error handler. So
Yeah.
how you can tell to that? Go to the global, create a global element called configuration, not configuration properties. Configuration property we used in a database where we are specifying the particular file name, right? Here we use a configuration. What is the file you want to configure? That means, sorry, not file, error handler. The flow name you need to specify that. Now explicitly I defined this flow should be acting as a global error handler. What do you mean by global error handler? Suppose
Default.
I deploy this application where I'm getting an exception.
Consume
I'm
connector.
getting exception at consume connector level. Yeah, can you please tell me the flow now?
It stops the consecutive
It will stop the
processes.
execution of the remaining processors. Then it will check
There's
the local
no
error.
local error. There's nothing. So it will go to the default error handler.
No, that's what we have given this as a default now. That means global error handler.
Handler.
Okay. Okay. Now it will check with the scope. Is it matching? App colon Sujit will execute. Right.
Yeah.
Once the condition is matching, the logic present in that will execute. Then it will check with the propagator continue. If it is a propagate, error event will be rethrown to the next level. What is the next level? Validate and transform.
Transform.
Right? And here also it will check for a local error handler. Is there any error handling block?
No.
Did I configure any alternate logic? No, right? So
No.
it will go to the global
Default.
again.
Global.
Yeah.
So how many times now the global error handler will execute? Total 3 times.
3 times.
So let me show you that. How many times that info level log? 3 times. Yes, understood everyone clearly or not
Yeah.
understood?
Got it.
Okay.
Sujit, if it's success, so then
Oh.
it goes only once.
See, just only one small blind logic here. If it is matching with the continue,
Yeah, continue. Yes, sir.
continue, you need to treat this global as a local. Okay. What happens if these two scopes are in a local error handler? What happens if it is mapped to continue? It will throw the success event to the next flow, right?
Yeah.
And that in that validate and transform, will it check for global? No, right? First of all, it will not go to the error handler block only because we are getting a success. Same concept. Instead of local, instead of writing multiple times, I'm just writing globally. As simple as that. Understood, Kishore?
Yeah, got it.
Yeah. Okay. Let me configure a propagate scope in a validate and transform now. And I'm mapping that to bad request. Now, once I deploy, I'm getting an exception at a consume connector level. Now, can you please tell me anyone?
Okay, it
Yes.
stops first.
Okay.
The logger and transfer message, the next ones, and then check for the local. There's no local, so it'll global what we have given, and it's through the error as propagate. It's logic will be executed, and the propagate throws the error to the get product. Sorry, what's called validate transfer.
Okay.
Yeah, it's true. And when the error occurs there, and they stops the remaining processes, then check the local. There's a local handler is there. So the logic will propagate the error throws to the next level.
No. Here, first check with the condition.
Yeah, bad request. Type.
Is it condition is matched?
No.
Huh?
No,
right?
No.
Then the logic also will not execute.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Then what happens? If it is not matching,
it's propagated.
no, that's what propagator continue irrespective. The logic is not, sorry, the condition is not matching first of all. Then who will come into the picture? Who will handle that exception?
Global again.
Will it go to the global?
Yes.
No, will not go to the global. Okay, this is a very important point in a certification perspective. Irrespective of the handler what you configured locally, if at all, if you get any exception, it will check in a local error handler, irrespective of the handler, whether it's a propagate or a continue, and either it is matching or not matching, the error will not look for a global error handler. If it is not matching, Mule default error handler will come. Okay. If it is matching, the handler only will execute. It will not go to the global. Okay. This is a very important point. Any questions?
Goes to mule default. Okay.
So, okay. Now tell me how many logs will execute now?
This process.
How many logs will execute? 2. From the first get product by name, the logger in the propagate scope in the global will execute. Then it will come to the validate and transform. Since it's not matching, Mule default error handler. What it will do? It will propagate the error to the next level main floor. Again, in the check in the local error handler, there is no local. That will go to the global. Again, the logger will execute. Got it?
Yeah.
How many times you need to receive the log?
2 times.
2 times.
Only 2 times, right? So understand the logic behind this propagate and continue and global error handler, how it would be configured. Understood, everyone? That is the reason I said on the day, if you understand about a propagate and continue difference, you are almost through with the error handling concept. So just read this one. If a flow has an error handler, the error is handled by the first error scope whose condition evaluates to true in a sequence from top to bottom hierarchy, right? If no scope conditions are true, the error is handled by the Mule default error handler, not by any scope in a application's global error handler, right? The Mule default error handler propagates the error up the execution check, that is the next level, and handles there. And if flow does not have an error handler, by simple, it will go to the application's default error handler. Understand?
Yes.
If it is not matching in the global, Mule default error handler will come into the picture. Yeah, these are the use cases. Four slides exactly. This is the local error handler. This is the default error handler. That means global applications level error handler. This is the one. Yeah.
So
if there is no local error handler, it will go to the application level and it will check there. If the scope is not matching, Mule default error handler will come. Got it? Next, I configured 2 error handlers locally. This time, will it go to the application level, whether it is matching or not matching? No, right? If it is no match, Mule default error only will act, right? Next, again, same concept. This time, application default error handler is matching. First of all, if I configured locally, whether it is matching or not matching, it will not go to the application level only. So if it is not matching locally, Mule default error handler will come into the picture, right? That's all from my end for exception handling. You just practice the recording by seeing the recording. Watch the video one more time if you are confused. That is more than enough. No need to practice also. It's purely concepts. Okay.
So just a question. So the
Yes, please.
global error handler that we are setting up, so that's at the
Yeah.
application level, right? Not just that flow.
No, not for that flow, for the entire application. That's
Okay.
what happened here, right? I configured applications globally. That's why we got at all the flow levels, it is coming into the picture.
so it become a default handler for the whole application, right?
If we configure it globally, that is overriding with the Mule default error handler. I mean, in other words, wherever Mule default error handler should come, there explicitly I configured this should be acting as a error handler. Got it?
Yeah, what if the default this global handler some exception if it doesn't handle, so what will happen? Let's say you only handle bad requests for the global handler, but it's a different exception, so what happened? Because your global handler is not handling that.
Which one? Where it is not handling? Which scope it is not handling? Which flow it is not handling?
For example, we have exception saying some error which is not a bad request. Some other maybe this, for example, is dispatch error, but the global handling only handle bad request. So in this case,
That's what. If it is not matching with the error which you are getting from the flow, then Mule default error handler will come.
Mule default, so the system built-in handler will come, right?
Exactly.
I see.
Okay, that's what I expressed here. If flow has an error handler, and if it is not matching, it will be handled by the global. If flow does not have an error handler, then also it will be handled by the global. But if it is matching with the scope in a global, it will be handled by that matching scope. Otherwise, Mule default error handler will come into picture. That's what it's listed here. Okay, I will share this PPT with all of you. Okay, please go through this PPT. Yeah.
Sujit, yesterday's video,
Oh my God, it says this recording is off, whether it is recorded or not. Ram from Apex team, can you please check? Can you please switch off the recording? Oh my God. Yesterday's recording uploaded today. Kishore, can you please cross check?
okay.
Oh my God, is it recorded or not? Ram, are you there, Ram? Just give me a minute, guys. Not picking the call. Guy, who is there, organizer? Can you please respond once?
Hello.
Yes. So, is it
Yes, sir.
recorded till session? Till now, the recording is done or not?
Yes, sir. Recording, sir. It's
Can you please off the recording, switch off the recording?